Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Lizzie, and for today's video I'm going to be finally talking about MAXXXINE. So I am sure if you're watching this, most of you know what this film is. If for some reason you don't, is the third installment in the Ty West X series. We had X, Pearl, and now MAXXXINE. And yeah, it may be a surprise to some of you, especially if you're a subscriber, that it took me this long to see the film. I did not go see this one in theaters. I did do a multi-part trailer reaction. I think that might have just been up on my Patreon though, when they first came out, and I was excited to see this film. I did very much enjoy the other two. I enjoyed Pearl more than X, and I was very excited for this film because it is set in the 80s and it follows MAXXXINE, who is the character that we meet in the first film, X, and it follows her on her path to stardom, trying to become an actress in Hollywood. What's really kind of great about this film, it is done in a slasher style, which obviously, of course, I love. The fact that it takes place during the same time as the events of the Night Stalker were happening, which they definitely used to add an additional element to this film. Without giving away too many spoilers, I know the film's been out for a while, but they used that to coincide with the events of what's happening surrounding MAXXXINE. And of course, another one of my favorite little aspects in this film is that Halsey's in it. If you don't know who she is, she's an American singer from Jersey. She gets to use her Jersey accent throughout this film, at least in the scenes that she's in. She's got minimal scenes. It's obviously not our main star, but to me she is, because if you don't know, I absolutely love her. She's one of my favorite artists of all time. So that was another thing when I saw that she was going to be in this film, I was really excited about. Now, to get into why I didn't see this film in theaters, it's because honestly there was a lot of controversy, as much as I hate to kind of just use that term, surrounding Mia Goth, the main actress, our lead actress that plays MAXXXINE and played Pearl. In this trilogy, she was going through, there was a lawsuit against her by one of the extras in, I believe, during the filming of Pearl, for her intentionally injuring him, and then when he spoke up about it, he received a lot of backlash because of that, and that was the lawsuit. And it was something that I feel like horror fans, people talked about for a split second, and then it just got swept under the rug, and people just seemingly cared more about seeing this film than they did about the actions that took place behind scene. Now, if you didn't know that going into seeing the film, no blame there. It just, and I'm not gonna hate you if you knew about it, you still went and saw the film. It just gave me the ick, and and not only that, but also, and this whole thing is, this whole review isn't gonna be me shitting on her video. I'm just gonna say one last thing. She's also married to Shia LaBeouf, who obviously was my childhood, but if you don't know, he's also an abusive piece of shit. Allegedly. Not that he's gonna see this, but his ex has spoken out heavily about his abuse towards her and the horrific things that he did, which that's not what this video is about, but just her being married to him and then her having these things that were taking place behind scenes just correlating together. It was all a lot of bad, and it did not make me feel comfortable going in to see the movie. So I waited and watched it on streaming, but I will say I did very much enjoy this film. I'm not gonna lie, it is still a really good film. Ty West is a phenomenal filmmaker. Mia Goth is a phenomenal actress. She is. I don't think that's an excuse to ignore being a bad person, but she did do a phenomenal job in this film, and I really enjoyed it. I loved the pace of it. I loved kind of everything. I loved just the way that they told the story of kind of what happens with her, and again playing into kind of the Night Stalker mixed with like the satanic panic that was going on heavily during that time, and being able to use those as kind of correlating things for what takes place in the film. I thought that they did a really good job with that. I am going to slowly start to mention some spoilers here. So if you are someone like me who's put off watching this film and you don't want things to be spoiled, then I would just, you know, hold off watching the rest of this video. Or you can mute it and let it play through so I still get the views. But I obviously knew going into this film that Halsey's character was going to die. You know, that was just kind of an obvious, I feel like that's just one of those kind of obvious things when you have someone, especially someone as famous as Halsey, play your character in this film. You know she's gonna die. So I did expect that. I was lucky enough to avoid spoilers for this film. So how they die and how the film ends was not spoiled for me. Now, one of the things that I really did find very interesting in this film is the fact that we see, and I'm not sure if anybody else caught up on this, is the fact that we don't actually really see the way the female characters die in this. We do see Halsey's character and the other actors in this. We see that they die. There's some videotaping, but it cuts away prior to their actual death. We see one of the other actresses that's on the film set with MAXXXINE. We see her body post-death. But we don't actually see any of their kills, but we do see the male counterparts' kills. So there's a man that follows MAXXXINE down an alleyway and threatens her, and she does something to him. Now, we don't know that he necessarily dies, but I would assume he would bleed out in this alleyway alone. So we see that. We do also see the investigator's death, which I thought was really cool. This movie definitely has a lot of really cool kills in it. And then we do see the way that her male best friend that owns this, or at least works at this video store, dies. Now granted, he is still a minority. He is both, they don't specify, but it is kind of led to believe that he's gay, so he's a queer man of color. So he is still a minority, but he's still a man, and so we see his death as well. And I thought that that was a really interesting way to take this film, because obviously we are very much used to seeing the brutality against women in film and in news and in regular old everyday life. So I think it was really cool that they chose not to show those things for this film. And I don't know if that was intentional in the way that I'm picking up on it. Kind of hope it was. Really cool if it wasn't. Feels like it was. And that's an aspect of this film that I really enjoyed. Now for the kind of twist final, I did look at some reviews on like Letterboxd. I saw some people saying that they weren't huge fans of it. I liked it. It was definitely something that I didn't see coming. So I mentioned an investigator. MAXXXINE's character is being stalked. There's some man behind the scenes that we really don't see. We just see him like wearing these gloves. Kind of Night Stalker feeling, but he's obviously not the Night Stalker. But he hired this private investigator, which we do meet, who obviously harasses MAXXXINE throughout the film. And her, like I mentioned, the people around her, these people that are close to her, tied to her in some sort of way. 3 of her best friends and one of the fellow actresses are murdered. And it kind of feels at first like it's just trying to pull MAXXXINE in so that she will meet up with this guy. This mysterious man wants her to like show up so that he's like blackmailing her for the events of X, and trying to get her attention. But as the ending of the film comes along, the climax of the film, we learn that this man is actually her father, and he was actually killing these people, not so much to like draw her attention, like a little bit, but more so it's because he feels that they are responsible in part for what Maxine has been up to. He is very religious man, and he believes that Hollywood has stolen his daughter, and he believes that you know, by doing these adult films that she is tied to Satan and going to hell and all of these things, and he reveals that he's trying to make this kind of documentary to reveal Hollywood for all of its bad. I mean, you're right, there is, but and you know, save Maxine, and she's gonna be the star of this film because he has saved her, and he says that he like tried to save her friends and get them to like repent for their sins, and they refused, and that's why they died. And it's a very interesting twist, and it's definitely one of those films that I feel like I'm gonna have to rewatch knowing how it ends, because there are so many little kind of references to. I mean, the film opens with showing this like home video of like a young Maxine and her dad, and there, you know, people protesting outside of this film that they're making, and one of the signs that one of the protesters holds up, which her dad refers to later, says like Hollywood stole my daughter, or Satan stole my daughter, something like that. And so I think it would be cool to rewatch this film and try to pick up on all the little things throughout it, now knowing how the film ends. And Maxine survives it all and goes on to be this mega star, making this film that she is about to star and become like this, going from being this kind of indie horror sequel to like this massive film, now that she's this kind of global star because of, you know, her defeating her dad and ending a reign of serial killings. So it's I loved how this film panned out. I loved this idea. I get that it might not be for everybody, and it also might not. I saw some complaints being that it didn't fit necessarily with the other two films, but I also saw people saying that one of the kind of genius of this film is that they are all so separate from each other. They really truly are. I mean, all of these films you can watch individually. Granted, it makes more sense to know what happened. I mean, I think Maxine and X and Maxine are two films that you could watch together without Pearl and still make sense. I think of all three of these, Pearl is the most like standalone film, because obviously it's more of like a prequel. So I do think, but I enjoyed it. I enjoy all these films. Again, Mia Goth is not someone that I'm going to actively support, so she's not someone that I'm going to continue to go see things that she's in, but other than her, this film really is full of like a phenomenal cast of actors. There's so many people that popped up throughout this film that I was not expecting. Lily Collins, who plays the other actress Molly, is in this film with her, so that was really cool to see her. I was like, oh, okay, had no clue that she was in this film. Along with Sophie Thatcher, who, if you don't know her by name, you would most likely recognize her. She's in the show Yellow Jackets, as well as she was just recently in Heretic and is about to be in Companion, which is another horror film for this year that I'm very much looking forward to. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are on this film. I hope that you did enjoy this video. If you did, please do give it a big old thumbs up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more spooky and horror related content. And I will see you all again later with another video. Bye!